JRPGs are a genre of game I don't play that often, but sometimes I come across a trailer of a modern JRPG that just screams out to me and begs me to play it. Please play me! Watching the trailer gave me glimpses of what I loved about Ni no Kuni 2. Bright, vibrant colours, different species of humanoids, and just over-the-top, corny one-liners that make me cringe, but smile at the same time. I really only play one action JRPG a year, and this year of 2024, Visions of Mana was that pick. I'll be honest right now, I have not played a single of Mana game before, so I decided going into this review that I would do zero research on the previous titles in the series to see if Visions of Mana as a standalone game can suck me into their deep, rich lore and history. And suck me it did. Luckily for me and other first-timers, Visions of Mana is a brand new Mana experience, so previous knowledge is not required. Just quickly, I want to point out that I will try my best to avoid any spoilers, and all the footage in this video will be of the first half of the game to avoid later gameplay mechanics. The story follows a young ginger named Val. It's a true win for the ginger community to be represented in this way. I see and I hear you. Val has been in training his whole life to become a soul guard, and this year he finally gets to put his skills to the test. Val is a soul guard because he doesn't have a soul himself because he's a ginger. I'm only joking. Please don't get mad at me, I had to do it. The world consists of like 8 elements: fire, wind, water, wood, moon, and my favourite, Pepsi Max. Essentially, each village lives with their own elemental being, who every 4 years picks an alm that then goes and kills themselves in order to keep the flow of mana calm. If an alm isn't picked for whatever reason, then that village is essentially doomed. The introduction to the game shows us the Alm of Earth trying to run away from her duties, and then in turn she turns into a rock, and the rest of the village turns into weird monsters. So from the get-go, we understand how important of a character we are playing and how big of a journey we are about to undertake. Val, being a soul guard, is in charge of protecting the alms on their journey to the mana tree to then sacrifice themselves. Look how happy they are to die. It's weird. Val goes from village to village collecting more alms, but is faced with a more complex journey than he initially thought. After some time, you get hints that some of the alms aren't exactly that happy to die. I did find it a little weird how happy some of these people were to be selected as an alm. They're so willing to die, and seeing little glimpses of self-doubt really humanize those characters. It's a journey of saving the planet, but at its core, it's really more of a love story, and I honestly think it would make a great anime. It seems like a confusing plot, but it's actually very simple, and at no point throughout the whole story was I ever confused or unsure of what was happening. The main characters are all very unique from one another, and really the only typical character is Val himself. That's not a bad thing, but he's a very standard individual that we have seen many times before, but the rest of the cast are where the personalities really start to shine. All of them are brought to life by extremely talented voice actors, but be prepared for the most corny lines you will ever hear. It's very like, if we put our minds to it, we can accomplish anything. Friendship will provide all the strength we need to succeed. I'm going to kill myself for the greater good. It's cringy at times, but it's super charming, and it's obviously something that people, including myself, enjoy because it's very typical of these type of games. The story as a whole is pleasant, and it develops in a very natural way. It's a decent length and it never feels repetitive, but my god, some of the cutscenes really drag on and are just far too frequent. It's a strange critique to make. Too many cutscenes doesn't seem like a bad thing, but quite often it's very jarring and it interrupted the flow of the game. An example of this is you would arrive to a new town, run 10 seconds into it, get a 3 or 4 minute dialogue cutscene, run 3 seconds further, another 2-minute cutscene, run a little more, and another damn cutscene. This isn't just me being over the top, it honestly happens a lot and it bothered me. Let me know in the comments if you've played this game and you found it jarring too. There's even one part in the game where you're talking to somebody and they tell you to meet them by the dock, which is literally a 2-second run away, and then you get to them and they're like, what took you so long? Are you kidding me? That was 2 seconds! Like, why are you yelling at me? The reason it is a bit jarring is because at times there can be a huge gap between actual proper gameplay like exploring and combat, which is where for me the game shines the most. They do a fantastic job of explaining more backstory and go into each character's history with conversations during the gameplay, and I wish there was more of that and less cutscenes. Because the game revolves around different elements, the map and level design reflect that perfectly. You go from grassy green hills to dry, lifeless deserts and cold, snowy mountain peaks. It was always a joy reaching a new area and to be introduced to what sort of life the individuals in that area endured. The Wind People of Longren, who had wings, lived in simple houses in a hilly valley, whereas the Moon Village of Etern were a feline-like civilization who lived near a castle. Each town and the surrounding areas are all very unique, and they never felt copied and pasted, which is what a lot of these open world games can suffer from. Look, I say open world, but I use that term very loosely here. The game does allow you to revisit areas later on, but it is a very on-the-rails type of adventure. Each time you get to a new area, it's essentially just like a big Super Mario 64 level. It has a bunch of collectibles and enemies scattered about, and once you collect everything in that area, you'll never revisit it unless the story takes you back there or you are going for 100%. If you do happen to go in the wrong direction, you will very quickly hit a wall where Val refuses to go any further. This could have been easily fixed by allowing the player to continue and see stronger enemies that they were under-leveled for, but instead our hand is held the whole time. Hand holding is fine in a lot of games, but in a game like Visions of Mana, more exploration and trial and error would have gone a long way. Each area has certain chests or currency that is out of reach and only accessible by unlocking a new ability and returning later in the game. If you want to do it, it's completely optional. I was a little worried early on that it would start to feel repetitive, but even towards the end of the journey, I was still excited to go into a new area and to collect as much as possible. But yeah, it's not really essential to explore that much unless you are playing on hard and need every tool and item possible. If you didn't take your time to explore and only killed enemies for XP, you could probably breeze through this game in a third of the time. But most of us gamers are weird and we need to collect absolutely everything, so it works in this game. You do unlock a cool dog-like mount early on, but it didn't really offer any additional skills or abilities. It just ran faster, but it also made it harder for me to collect everything. There are some missed opportunities in the exploration. Some of the powers you unlock could have made for some playful and satisfying puzzles, but everything is very simple. Even areas that seem like a puzzle end up being sections that provide zero difficulty or thinking outside of the box to progress through. Side missions are in the game, but they are so dull and not creative in any way. 90% of them are simple fetch quests. Go kill 5 goblins because they are stopping us from farming. Go kill 5 crabs because I want crab meat. Go kill 5 wolves because I want to extend the amount of gameplay there is in this game. They really put zero effort into the side content, and if there wasn't rewards for completing them, I honestly wouldn't have even done a single one of them. At its core, Visions of Mana is a hack and slash game. How deep you explore the gameplay mechanics is completely up to you though. If you just want to spam the attack buttons, you could get through the whole game just doing so. But there is also a huge amount of depth to the combat if you wish to explore that as well. I land somewhere in the middle. I am willing to use magic abilities and experiment with different things, but I am also too lazy to learn which element is super effective to one another or change strategies during battle. If you are playing on the hardest difficulty, you will need to prepare more before each major area. But I played on normal and I didn't have to prepare at all, ever. Even in the final boss, I just went in blind and beat it on my first try. As you visit each area, you unlock that area's elemental power. You can equip each of the 5 characters with any of the 8 powers and change them as you go. Take Val for instance. If you give him the wind element power, he gets a boomerang and is equipped with a heavy sword. Give him the wood element and he gets a short, faster weapon and a healing power. And with the fire element, he gets a shield and a lance and can charge at people with fire. Each of the 5 characters has 3 different weapon classes that changes depending on which of the 8 elemental powers you give them. It also changes their appearance, so each character essentially has 8 or 9 different outfits they wear. It's a very cool touch. It makes me jealous because I have like 3 t-shirts and like 2 pairs of shorts. I want to change outfits every day. You can find or buy more powerful weapons and armor as you go, and you can also give each character small upgrade seeds like more strength or magic spells like Fireball, for example. There are heaps of different magic spells and combinations you can pick from, which is why I said how deep you delve into the combat is up to you. I would rarely change my elemental powers, as I would stick to my 3 favorites for the maximum party of 3 you could have. But I did experiment with each power as I unlocked them, and I'm sure more creative people would find stronger uses for some of the ones I thought were weaker. I went very melee and damage focused, but if you want to make Val focus more on projectiles and healing, then that's up to you. You can also change which character you play as mid-battle just by swapping them, but just like I did in Ni no Kuni 2, I never changed from Val, as I like to picture myself as one character. It's a great option for those that once again want to experiment more with the combat, but it's not something that I personally did. You don't get to pick your stats or anything when you level up, but being able to mix and choose which seeds to carry or what hotkeys and items to have equipped is where the RPG element really comes into play. I mentioned this before, but on normal difficulty, you don't need to unlock everything. But the more you explore, the more seed slots you will unlock, which once you have like 6 slots, it adds a whole onslaught of different things you can achieve with each character. If I was to play Visions of Mana through a second time, I would make Val focus more on spells and mana, for example. I was once again worried early on that the combat would start to feel repetitive the longer I played, but there is a huge varieties of enemies you face. Some freeze you, poison you, or even shrink you, and it causes the gameplay to change up quite frequently. The boss fights in Visions of Mana are what this game is all about though. Going from area to area, I was always looking forward to the next big battle. They all start off pretty basic, but once again, the further you go, the more varied they are, and towards the end of the game, even on normal, I started to find quite a lot of difficulty in them. On normal difficulty, I died once in the whole game, but came close a few times towards the end of the game, so make of that what you want. Anyway, I think that's all I've got for you. I don't want to explain too much of the gameplay mechanics because most of the joy you get in the game comes from unlocking new abilities and experimenting with them. The 35 or so hours I had with Visions of Mana was never boring though. The story is extremely sweet and charming, and it's a very feel-good adventure with some sadness and deep moments sprinkled in. I enjoy the fact that the gameplay can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be, and while I think they missed out by not having fun puzzles to solve, the exploration as a whole is quite satisfying. I would recommend Visions of Mana to you if you are a JRPG fan, especially if you played Ni no Kuni 2. You don't get any of those like mini games or town building elements like Ni no Kuni 2 had, but the gameplay, the exploration, and the story is really solid. I give this game a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching my review on Visions of Mana. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us a like, subscribe if you like gameplay. I only ask at the end of the videos just because I don't want to hound you guys, but I really do appreciate all the support I've had on the channel so far. Thank you. See ya.